comment or ask questions, I ask you to sign the delegation sheet. So good evening. Today is April 16, 2025. I will call this public hearing of the Acushnet School Committee to order. We are here to discuss the pending debt exclusion article concerning an air environmental quality and decarbonization project. This meeting is being video and audio recorded for future cable broadcasts. Please silence all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Could I have a motion to open the school committee meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Could we stand for the pledge of allegiance?
Mr. Chairman, we want to reopen our joint session. Is there a motion to open the Board of Selectmen meeting?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here today. As members of the school committee elected by you, our town residents, one of our primary responsibilities is to ensure that our students receive a quality education in a safe and supportive environment. To fulfill that responsibility, we must ensure that our school buildings are equipped with the necessary infrastructure to create spaces where students can thrive, spaces that are not only safe but also conducive to learning and growth. The proposed project that you're about to hear about directly addresses critical concerns related to indoor air quality, building envelope improvements, and energy efficiency. By making these necessary upgrades, we can extend the life of our current school buildings, ensuring that they continue to meet the needs of our students and staff for years to come. This will help us avoid the need for costly new construction while providing a healthier, more efficient learning environment. Tonight we are here to discuss the Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion ballot question, which will support the Acushnet Public Schools Air Environment Quality and Clean Energy Project. To provide you with more details on this important initiative, I will now turn the presentation over to Superintendent Dr. Paula Bailey and our School Business Manager, Mr. Patrick McIntyre.
Thank you and good evening. Tonight we're going to discuss the Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion for the Acushnet Public Schools, an air environment quality and clean energy project. I would ask that we hold all questions until the end.
So as Dr. Bailey discussed, we're here to talk about the Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion as it relates to the clean energy project we're presenting here tonight. A debt exclusion is a voter measure that allows a local government, such as a town, to temporarily exceed the property tax levy limit set by Proposition 2.5, to pay for specific debt-related costs, typically related to capital projects such as school construction or large infrastructure projects. It is important to highlight that debt exclusion is temporary, lasting only until the debt associated with the specific project is fully paid off. Once the debt is repaid, the tax levy returns to the normal limits under Proposition 2.5, ensuring that any increased tax burden is not permanent. This project will improve or address all the following existing measures or concerns as it relates to our elementary school building: safety, indoor environmental quality, infrastructure needs, building longevity, outdated facilities and systems, and it will also benefit students, staff, and the community.
So just to walk us through a timeline, I'm sure that many of you can remember that in the summer of 2023, it was a very wet and humid summer. As we approach the start of the school year, as we work on our cleaning during the summer, our floor refinishing, etc., a teacher who was involved in summer programming noticed that her room had a white film of mold across much of the furniture. Immediately, we began to investigate the matter, and we realized that there were multiple rooms with the same type of mold. We met with our custodial and maintenance team, and we approached a plan to safely clean the surface mold. So the mold was cleaned, and in a matter of time, it kept returning. We realized at that point we had a much bigger problem at hand. So we contracted environmental and engineering firms, we purchased dehumidifiers, and we continued cleaning the space. Mold testing was performed and walkthrough assessments of the building and equipment by the environmental and engineering firms were made, along with many follow-up meetings. The good news is that black mold or toxic mold, it was not declared to be that, and also we were not declared to be a sick building. That was immediately ruled out, which was a relief. However, there were still many concerns surrounding the building equipment, the building envelope, resulting in humidity concerns, which inevitably caused the mold. From there, we set up a steering committee to discuss next steps, and this committee consisted of our town administrator, a select board member, a FinCon member, the Board of Health director, our school administration, faculty and staff, and some staff members are actually parents as well. So as the mold kept reappearing, we decided we needed to close school early around Thanksgiving and give time for professional remediation deep clean, which costs the school over 6 figures in ESSER funding. And as you know, ESSER funding is only available one time. So it was one-time funding we used to clean and deep clean our school. And I know this was a huge inconvenience for families, but we felt like we had no choice at that time. We held informational meetings to discuss ongoing concerns, testing results, and possible solutions. Eventually, it was decided by the steering committee to pursue a comprehensive energy management services procurement to capitalize on a full investment grade audit of both school buildings. That consisted of the building envelope, the equipment, everything. They went through the plenum. They just went through both buildings, all these engineers. And that would take into the information to pursue a project which would be a permanent solution to address our buildings. We issued a procurement for comprehensive energy management services through the Department of Energy and Resources and under Mass General Law, Chapter 25, to address the issues as part of an environment, energy efficiency, and upgrade effort. So as a result of a very thorough procurement process, and I can tell you that Siemens Applied Training Energy Efficient Investments, Inc., we had many stakeholders vet them out with a very comprehensive process. We had a rubric, we had a team checking references from other municipalities, other school districts, interviews, we interviewed these companies. We ended up selecting Trane as our turnkey provider for a design-build solution for more efficient and effective design engineering. There's a statutory obligation under this procurement for Trane to generate conservation measures of energy, which have greatly benefited this project via energy efficiency and related grants, incentives, and rebates that we will be discussing later on tonight. So here are some images from when the mold was present. As you can see, it was in the air traveling to some of the ducts and vents. It was also on cloth surfaces, on furniture, and even in this picture, underneath furniture. And obviously, it wasn't obvious in obvious spaces. So we really knew we had a problem. Also, we got continuous staff complaints and concerns. We ended up replacing classroom carpets, chairs, bulletin boards, whatever we had to do that we found mold on. But it was definitely an ongoing issue. And that really led us to our school closure that November, that Thanksgiving week, where we had ServPro coming out to deep clean our school during the Thanksgiving break. In addition, you can see our current Band-Aid fixes, which consist of 63 classroom and office dehumidifiers and 93 classroom and office air purifiers. We had some of those air purifiers during COVID. And as the pictures tell, these units are in the way of teaching and learning. They're right behind a classroom work table in the path of a bookshelf. And they all increase our electricity usage and give off noise and heat as they run, impairing the educational environment. In addition, as these units fail, we need to continue to replace them or replace their filters, which becomes very costly. Some of you may also recall that more recently a neighboring school district had to close school for several days due to a fire started by similar equipment malfunctioning. And again, we have more than 60 of these pieces of equipment in our classrooms running day in and day out at night, and this is one of the risks that is posed.
So as Dr. Bailey mentioned, the costs to deep clean, test, add dehumidifiers, replace equipment, furniture, etc., was exorbitant. It totaled $274,000 plus, and we were able to pay it using ESSER funds that were otherwise allocated to some teaching and learning initiatives that we weren't able to move forward with, but instead use those funds to rely to deep clean and remediate our school building. We didn't have to ask for any additional funds from the town, we didn't have to tap into free cash or request that, and there was no other support necessarily that we asked for. This doesn't include up on the screen the hours that it cost us in labor for overtime, for emptying these dehumidifiers, continuous cleaning, vacancies from teachers being out sick, students being out sick and missing learning, costs for substitutes, so on and so forth. And it doesn't include the costs that it took to re-strategize our custodial team to maintain these efforts that we put into place and take them away from their daily duties. So moving on, we're going to talk about the project overview, which addresses the environment quality improvements, a building management system upgrade, building envelope improvements, duct sealing, and air purification. So for the indoor environmental quality improvements, we will improve indoor comfort and humidity control at AES with upgraded HVAC systems and controls. This project, it will replace or upgrade these systems in advance of failure, addressing long-term infrastructure needs and making the building more efficient and cost-effective. Waiting for a unit or a piece of equipment to fail or break down in an emergency is always a more expensive approach than proactively making improvements and maintaining our equipment. As evidenced by daily feedback that we receive through our trouble ticket system, day in, day out, we have teachers complaining about the temperatures in their rooms. One room's 80 degrees, the other one's 40 degrees. And we try to pivot to make these changes in our building management system, and there's no response from those controls. That often we have to manually change louvers and make tweaks within the classrooms and kind of run around like crazy. Just recently, a teacher complained about their classroom temperature that was up to 80 degrees, causing their asthma to flare up that otherwise hasn't been a problem. So again, this equipment fix would address improving indoor air quality and create an environment that's healthy and conducive to learning. The next component of the project is a building management system upgrade. An upgraded management system allows for better monitoring and control of heat, cooling, ventilation systems, and helping to quickly address any safety concerns, such as fires, gas leaks, excessive heat, so on and so forth, before they become critical. To coincide with the previous slide, our BMS unfortunately has failed components, as I just mentioned, that replacing them one by one becomes costly and isn't always effective. It negatively impacts the labor our maintenance and custodial team has to waste on trying to respond to these fixes, and an upgraded system will allow for much more appropriate use of their time. In addition to controlling existing upgraded equipment, this is critical to properly control and work in harmony with the new equipment being implemented in this project. So think of it like a new car. You buy a nice new fancy car with all this technology. You might not understand it all, but built into that car is a system that alerts you when you need an oil change, when the tire pressure is low, when something isn't working properly. So similarly, this building management system will do the same for old and existing equipment as well as new equipment that we have. And just for reference, not too long ago, we actually had an incident next door where a boiler failed in the winter. It got so cold that the pipe burst, and we walked into, water on the floor and some damage done to the hallway that we were able to address. But again, a proper building management system would notify us in advance that something failed and was down, and we'd be able to tackle it before emergency. This project will also address the building envelope. So through this investment grade audit, there was a thorough study of our building envelope at both schools. And there was a need for upgrading insulation, windows, structural elements, and all of these things would help maintain the integrity of the building and reduce the likelihood of issues such as humidity, mold growth, and structural damage, all that can cause safety hazards. A better sealed building envelope prevents drafts, humidity infiltration, ensures better control of the temperature and air quality inside the school, and tightens up the building so that it's an environment that we can now control and not worry about exterior forces pushing in and out uncontrollably. And again, it extends the useful life of the building. Similar to your home, you wouldn't want to have doorways and windows that are drafty, attic spaces and needs that wind and water and humidity just come into. You want to address those things before it does more damage to your house and more damage to your equipment, because in return, if cold air is coming in, your heating equipment's going to work harder to offset that cold air coming in, and it's going to burn out faster, require more maintenance and more repairs. So that's why this is a critical facet of the project as well. Another component is duct sealing. So similar to the building envelope, we want to control the air that flows through the ducts and where we send it. So, ducts can have leaks, they can reshape, things like that. This would seal those ducts, cleaning them, sealing them, and making sure that the air that we're trying to control gets to the direction in the places that we're steering. It would, help make sure that our systems are functioning properly, minimizing the circulation of dust, dirt, mold spores, etc., and improve the air quality throughout the building. Air purification, so as Superintendent Bailey spoke upon, we have many air purifiers throughout our building spaces. This would eliminate the need for those, and it would centralize the air purification through a powered active filter. So similarly, active air filtering involves systems or devices that actively clean or treat the air as it passes through the HVAC system using electrical chargers to neutralize contaminants. Passive air filtering, like what we would see in a residential setting, relies on the natural airflow to get through those filters and purify that air. Unlike filters found in residential homes, these electrically charged active air filters capture bacteria, viruses, gases, etc. By upgrading the building's air purification system, the school can reduce the presence of harmful airborne pollutants, allergens, and pathogens, making the indoor air environment and quality safer for students and staff. Proper airflow can prevent the spread of illnesses, improving the overall health and safety of all of our building occupants. So as far as project cost and funding goes, so this project is proposed as a not to exceed $4.2 million project. Already we've secured funding of $500,000 from a green community grant to reduce this number, and we've locked in a minimum $200,000 incentive and rebate from Eversource to also offset the cost. The remaining costs, as we know why we're here tonight, other than to educate you on the project, is it would need to be funded by a debt exclusion. So again, not to exceed amount $4.2 million, less the grants that we've secured and the rebates that we've secured, and we're looking at a conservative $3.5 million project. What does that mean to our taxpayer and our residents that are here with us today and within the community? So here's just some stats on our current tax rates, tax statistics, for lack of a better term. Our residential tax rate in Acushnet is $10.79 per $1,000 of assessed value. Commercial is $15.22 per $1,000 of assessed value. And the average single-family assessed value home is $471,732. This is also direct information from the state that the town actually reports out. The average single-family tax bill in Acushnet is $5,090. So based on a 20-year bond, which is what we've discussed with town personnel and how we would borrow the money, and a 4% annual interest rate, which we receive from bond council, the principal of the debt would obviously be $3.5 million with a related interest charge of $1.47 million over the term of the bond. The highest year, we would be looking at a $311,500 principal and interest payment. Lowest year, $178,500 interest payment, and on average, a $248,500 interest and principal payment. What does that translate to? So in the highest year that I just discussed, the impact on the tax rate would be about 15 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, or $7.76 that year to the average single-family home of $471,732 for that annual tax bill. Similarly, for the lowest year, the increase in the annual tax rate would be 8 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, or $37.74 to the average single-family tax bill in Acushnet for that year. That's yearly. And then on average, again, if we were to average this all out, it would be about 12 cents per $1,000 of assessed value and $56.61 to the average single-family tax bill in Acushnet. We don't take this lightly. We understand that everybody has different means and incomes in town, different values on their homes. Every dollar counts for everyone, quite frankly. But we did see some comparisons floated out there online and in conversation. When we look at $56.61, some people spend more than that on a cup of coffee per month. So just making some smaller changes, it could help afford this project for the population of 400 plus students and teachers.
So there are many benefits, and we kind of grouped them into 3 different categories: fiscal benefits, social benefits, as well as environmental benefits. So on the fiscal side of things, we have needed facility updates. The approach to this project has allowed for savings through energy incentives and grants, and also provides a small measure of utility savings over time, even after adding equipment. These savings, although they're small, still help pay for the project over time, and they're also guaranteed by training. With upgraded and new equipment, there will be lower maintenance costs. Not only that, but our staff will be trained on how to properly maintain the equipment. They'll have a billing management system that updates them when something isn't working as planned, and there's an opportunity for extended warranties on the different components of the project, which was requested by a select board member. Potential for improved educational outcomes as a result of a conducive learning environment. And more importantly, in the worst case scenario where a project is not approved and the buildings continue to degrade, this project would otherwise help avoid the need of a new school and its related tax implications, which is over $100 million project, which would obviously have an impact on our town residents. Social benefits. The project would optimize indoor air quality in the schools, solving the humidity issues. It would positively impact student learning environments and help retain our educators. Consistent and positive learning environments for your kids, the future of Acushnet. It would arguably solve or reduce sick days and mental and physical health. Also, as you know, many community groups use our facilities for sports, clubs, meetings, voting, etc. And now we would have an improved environment for all to benefit. And then the environmental benefits, there would be a measurable reduction in utility consumption and a measurable reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. This type of project could serve for a community model for sustainability, leading to a broader, improved environmental impact. So key important dates, upcoming dates to keep an eye on. Our annual town election is Tuesday, April 22nd, where amongst other things you will vote on this ballot question, as well as the annual town meeting right here in the same location on Monday, June 2nd. If you haven't seen the ballot shared by the town at this point, on the screen you will see the actual language of the ballot question related to this project. And then you could visit our website. We have all the information up there on this project, as well as frequently asked questions surrounding a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion. You will also be able to find a copy of this presentation after tonight and other related documents on both of these pages. And then at this point, I think we're available for questions. I just want to say that we have some representatives here from Train, our experts, as well as Beth Greenblatt from Beacon Solutions. She's a consultant that the district hired, because certainly I am not an expert or an engineer in these areas. We hired the experts. We had a consultant who was looking out for our best interests in all of this, from start to finish. So we really appreciate having Beth on board. So Beth works for the district. And then, of course, we have people here from training. I'll let them introduce themselves and as people ask questions or make public comments. But I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Bailey and Mr. McIntyre, for that comprehensive overview of the Acushnet Public Schools Air Environment Quality and Clean Energy Project and related debt exclusion ballot question. As we've discussed today, this project is crucial for improving the indoor environment, extending the life of our existing school buildings, and creating a healthier, more energy-efficient learning space for our students and staff. The upgrades we're proposing will help us address pressing issues related to air quality, building infrastructure, and energy use, all while avoiding the need for costly new construction. As elected school committee officials, we are committed to doing our proper due diligence to ensure that any decisions made are in the best interest of our students, staff, and community. We believe in this project and support it as the best option that will address the problems that the school has faced in recent years. So as Dr. Bailey mentioned, at this time we would like to open the floor for public comments. We welcome your thoughts, questions, feedback. If you have signed in for public comment, you will be allowed 3 minutes for your comments. So when you're ready, please step forward to the podium and kindly state your name and address for the record before providing your comments. Thank you again.
Bob Mueller, Beechwood Drive.
Gonna push the button up,
Sorry.
slide.
Got it. Is that better?
Got it?
Got it. Bob Mueller, Beechwood Drive. Question I have is, this sounds to me like a Band-Aid. What's causing the problem? Is it under the concrete? And if it's not going to get fixed by digging up the concrete and laying air filtration under there, this system is just going to work double time for the rest of the system's life. Are there any plans to fix the problem, not just put a Band-Aid on it?
I'm going to look to try and help address this problem, but through the investment grade audit, all facets were investigated. Not only training, but engineers that we had in preliminary before we engaged in this procurement walked through and highlighted the failure of our equipment and controls and the relative humidity in the classrooms, and essentially landed on that being the #1 contributor to this problem. I don't know if you guys want to share part of your investigation and how we landed on this, the solutions that were presented.
Can I just interrupt 1 second? So this school was added on to years ago. I don't know the exact date. Is this problem throughout the old system as well, or just a new part of the building?
So if you're referring to the renovations in 2002, perhaps, that's the last construction I know when we did the additions in this district. Yes, the problems throughout the entire school, not just the new section, not just the old section. We have visible mold and refining molds in all sections, and there's failed equipment and controls throughout the building, even the addition.
Good evening. My name is Max Marvis Trey. I'm a project developer. I'm an engineer by training. Predominantly mold is caused by moisture, right? Moisture deposit on surfaces. And the most recommended way to control mold is by controlling indoor moisture. And indoor moisture is, in this case, most cost-effectively controlled with the solution that we proposed. So this solution is not a Band-Aid. In my engineering opinion, it is not a Band-Aid. It is to address the root cause, which is humidity control within the space.
So we're going to control what comes into the classroom, but we're not going to do anything what's causing the mold problem under the concrete.
The mold grows where there can be due condensation, right, on the surface surfaces, and that is a function of how we control the airflow. For example, in a functioning HVAC system, the airflow should be within the ducts, and if the ducts are leaky, then there's uncontrolled condensation. If the exhaust fans and the supply fans are not coordinated, if they are out of maintenance, then that can cause some of the unbalance and cause some of the unintended airflow. So the mold issue, to address the root issue, is to address airflow, humidity control through the comprehensive solution that we propose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? Michael Matt from Keynote Acushnet. Just a couple of quick questions. First of all, no one's mentioned where the systems are. Is this going to be in every classroom, every office, computer room, and all that sort of thing? Or is it just selected areas?
Good question. It is in every area that we can cost effectively add the solution to. So essentially it covers all the areas that are served by a ventilation unit. So that does cover all the classrooms, covers the cafeteria, covers the gym. It covers essentially all of the occupied areas.
Next question would be the system. How long do you propose that system is going to last and be useful before it's outdated?
The system is the system at its core with the technology is essentially the same technology as we have been using as an air conditioning system with smart controls and with other components to make it work in ways that we can better control humidity, in ways that we can better control. So in terms of reliability of the system with proper maintenance, the typical life of system is, I would say, about 20 years.
About 20 years?
20 years and beyond, right?
Okay.
They have many systems that are still well-functioning.
Okay, I'm sorry, and does the system decline slightly over the years? And so like, if it's up running tomorrow, it's at 100%, in 20 years, it's at 70%, what's the efficiency? You know, I don't know if you can have those numbers, but.
So naturally, systems decline slowly over time. The multiplier of that is heavily affected by how well maintained those systems are, how close controlled those systems are. That's exactly what the solution is going to address. Ultimately, over that 20 or 25 years, it's kind of an industry standard of how this equipment lasts. Having a tight control of how it's maintained is by far the biggest factor in making sure that it loses a quarter or more or less of that loss over time.
Okay, so what kind of a warranty is on the system? Is it a full 20-year warranty for service, workmanship, and parts and labor and all that?
So just before we jump into that, back to the equipment and the longevity of the equipment. So not only, again, is this equipment going to improve what's in place at this time, and we just talked about there was an addition, 23 years ago, and that equipment's ultimately been deemed as failed by Trane as well as other engineering companies that came to take a look at it. Anything's an improvement, and then again, with any routine maintenance and proper maintenance of this equipment, we should expect 20, if not 20 plus years. The air purification is going to replace 93 different units throughout the school building, which the filters are expensive, the electricity is expensive, the labor tied to fixing and repairing all of those little small pieces of equipment is expensive. And we're going to get longer life out of the new active filters. We're going to have to replace those way less infrequently. We're going to get more life out of those components too. So it's not just the big equipment, but all the little pieces and components along with it, we're gonna get better life out of it and a better result of what we're dealing with at this time. As far as warranties, and extended warranties and maintenance plans and things like that, Select Board, Mr. Gasper, asked about that information in the joint meeting, which Chairman, investigated his direct concerns on that. We have a spec sheet, in front of the panel here anyway to speak further on that, so I will get that back over to training, and we can let us know if we answer your question.
Yeah, I was actually wondering about maintenance plan and that sort of thing as well.
Yes, so when you are doing a construction project, a turnkey project like this with Train, there are naturally some standard warranties that come with it. It's always the first year workmanship warranty, and then any parts and labor warranties that come with our pieces of equipment. So there's each type of equipment has a different standard. So sometimes it's a 1 year standard parts and labor. Sometimes it's 1 year labor extended parts. So some parts might be 5 years. We even have some other parts like a heat exchanger, for example, that's 10 years. And then there are options to have extended warranties on some pieces of equipment. So for example, if there's a first year parts only, you can extend it to a 5 years for $7. And likewise 5 to an extended 10 year on compressors. So we have a couple of other options when it comes to warranties on new equipment.
Does 4.2 include any extended warranties?
No, right now 4.2 is the standard warranties.
So, 20, 25 years, debt solution's 20 years, and we could need a new system after that, correct? And we have maintenance to do, filter change and that sort of thing, which the electronic filters, I'm sure, $5 filters you get at Home Depot. So I just wondered what the projected costs are. You must have some projected costs written down somewhere that you would install these things. You know what it costs. So do we have projected costs for maintenance?
Well, before that, so again, just the industry standard on a lot of this, even equipment you're purchasing at your home is going to be, 10 years, 20 years, so on and so forth. We can't predict what's going to happen in 20 years. We can't predict the changes, the environment, any of those components that factor into the life of this equipment. What's an important takeaway that we didn't necessarily highlight is that all of this equipment comes with rigorous training from training for our teams to be able to update, maintain, repair, work on the equipment, and keep it functioning at the best levels that it should be. That's not something you get with your standard, order equipment, install equipment, and walk away. This is again comprehensive. That our whole team will be trained on it. If there's turnover in our team, Train will come back and train them on it. So we will ultimately be experts of our own equipment to be able to reduce some of those costs.
I just want to add one thing. We spent upwards of $300,000 to mitigate this once before. That was with one-time ESSER funding. My concern would be, what if this happens again? Where is the money going to come from? Who's going to do a deep cleaning? Again, this is not a part of our operating budget. So that's a concern for the school district. Right now, someone talked about a Band-Aid. We feel as though we have a Band-Aid on the project, on the school right now with all of these small dehumidifiers, which are not commercial grade.
Just two quick questions, and I'll be out of here. Was there ever a plan B? What if this doesn't get approved? I'm just wondering what it looks like for the town if this doesn't get approved.
So again, internally, without getting into the procurement of this project and the investment grade audit that was conducted, we looked for a good and best solution. We were talking about, a structure out of that as a ground source heat pump to essentially be off the grid and provide all electricity while upgrading all these systems, and that was, tens of millions of dollars, which we realized isn't, feasible in this community. So, we look for a good, better, best fit. Those were plans A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. What we've landed on is plan A, and it's what we're sticking to. We know it's a comprehensive solution. We know all of these things have to work in unison. And by addressing just one component of that now, we can't guarantee that that's going to solve the problem. But we do know equipment costs are going to go up. We know, just everything's going to get more expensive the more you put it off. And to Dr. Bailey's point, if our Band-Aid fix right now fails, sure, we might have addressed the building envelope, but we still have $300,000 that we need for remediation because now we have to go back out and wait to try to get the equipment component to make sure that everything's operating in unison in accordance with the project that was designed.
And then my last question would probably be for the selectmen. Chairman Hinckley, I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you or not, but do we have any other Prop 2.5 debt exclusion that we're currently still paying on for the town, other projects in town?
Yeah, we got a couple, the police station, one of them. Mr. Gasper actually might know that a little more in depth than I do.
So the town's carrying, and I don't have the exact number in front of you, the town's carrying roughly $435,000 in debt exclusion. The majority of that is coming from the police department, and roughly $93,000 in change will be coming off July 5th, I believe, 2025, but it's still currently being carried on the books. And Mr. Mann, to answer your question about Plan B, once we're all done taking public input, I think you bring up a very valid point of a Plan B.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Lisa Cavallo. I actually own property in Acushnet, so I am a taxpayer as well. I am from Dartmouth. I've been an employee of the Acushnet Public School System for 29 years. I've been living in that building longer than anybody here, and I appreciate the walk down memory lane of what has taken place, but I'd like to go back even further because this mold is not new. 2023 is not when the mold started. I can take it back to 2002 when we did the renovations of the building. It goes to the lowest bidder. It was done not in a great way, and it's not working now. There's leaks in the gym. The closet is not feasible in that gym. Fast forwarding a little bit, I can remember 1 year when the custodian didn't want teachers in the classrooms over the summer and shut all the classroom doors, and when the teachers came in to get their classrooms ready, the rooms were full of mold, from floor to ceiling to everything that was in there. And basically what was done at that point in time is they just sent the custodians back in there to clean up the mold. There was no remediation done at that point, and we're probably talking about 15 to 20 years ago. This is not a new problem. This is something that they have inherited. They've worked a lot of hours. I mean, just to secure a $500,000 grant is huge money that is getting taken off that project. In 2023, it was a wet and humid summer. Dr. Bailey is absolutely right. And our custodians and staff that were working actually contacted me as the union president to let me know that there was mold all over the building and that they were directed to clean it up. So that's when we started having the conversation, and that was July of 2023. We actually had our own people come in and do testing. There were 11 surfaces at that point that were tested, and 9 of them had detected mold. There was mold above the ceiling tiles in the library. There was heavy mold growth there. The plenum was tested in the yellow wing, which is the old part of the building for those of you who have had kids in the past that have come through. And there was mold growth there as well. Steel shelves in classrooms had mold growth. The AC unit in the library had mold growth, and people were getting sick. We had C2S Energy, a company, come through and do a walkthrough with us as far as on our side from the ATA side, and they found mold growing inside the entire soffit of the blue wing, which is the 4th grade wing, because pipes had burst and the mold was growing in there, which goes into the gym, which is the new area of the school department, of the school over there. There's condensation on the windows because if you come to my building, you can see that the heating registers run alongside of the windows. So when you have heat and cold weather with the windows, you now have condensation and then you get mold. The heat is not regulated. The heat has not been regulated in that building for at least 15 years. I mean, I'm just throwing out dates or years that I think, but I have been there, like I said, for 29 years, and I can't remember it being this bad. The Band-Aid has fallen off at this point. Staff and students were out sick. I was sick. When I went to the doctor last year, I was told that I was having symptoms of asthma. I do not have asthma. I was on prednisone for 2 months because I was in those buildings late at night, doing walkthroughs with the people that were doing testing for us, doing walkthroughs with the company that came through to look at the building to see where was the mold coming from. Where is it coming from the cement? Is it coming from underneath? You know, where is this coming from? Because obviously you have to fix where it's coming from before you can just band-aid it. And now I'm just going to fast forward now into 2025. We have people and teachers out sick again. So you go in every room is like 75 to 85 degrees. If you drive by the elementary school at any time, you will notice that most of the building windows are wide open because you can't even breathe. I had a student in there today stand up in the middle of a group lesson and say, can somebody please turn the heat off? Because that's how hot it was, and the window was open. We ended up turning fans on. So my concern is if we don't fix this problem, our kids are getting sick, our teachers are getting sick. What are we going to do? If this doesn't go through, how are we going to fix this problem? Because we cannot continue to come to school having teachers, staff, being sick, everybody's covering for each other, kids are sick. There are people here that their kids have been sick from what's been going on over there. So my question is if this doesn't pass, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this problem? Because lawsuits are going to end up happening when it's people's health that we're talking about. And it's the same people that it's happening to again. People have dry eyes because now we have dehumidifiers in all of these rooms, and we're drying everybody out. So we're trying to control the mold with just the dehumidifiers in the classrooms, and now we're drying people out. So people are having issues with dry eyes. People are starting again with rashes. People are not feeling well. People are having headaches. That's not a healthy environment to work in. That's our working conditions, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So my question to the committee, to the chairman of the Selectmen, Finance Committee, if we don't fix this problem or this doesn't go through, how are we going to fix this? What are we going to do?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so thank you, Mrs. Cavallo. So I do want to comment, because there was the idea of a potential Plan B floated. But the school committee stands by the recommendation. The recommendation that was made was for a comprehensive solution that we think will provide us with the most chance of solving this problem permanently. If this doesn't pass, obviously we will have to go back to the drawing board, but we are in support of this comprehensive solution to actually address the problem, and to your point, get rid of the Band-Aid to fix the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cavallo, if you break it down from a simple financial standpoint, we've all made comments, and I'm only speaking for myself at this point, we've all made comments that we want to see some kind of fix. There might be a situation where we have to take it in stages, just simply from a budgetary standpoint. That doesn't mean we're not going to make an effort to try to fix it. It means that it might not happen in one shot. Ultimately, it's up to the taxpayers of this town whether this happens or not. We don't have any say on it. The school doesn't have any say on it. They can only provide the best information possible, which is why they do things like public hearings, so everybody can ask questions and we can talk about it. Hence why my colleague asked Train for all the information on the warranty stuff, just to make sure that in 10 years we don't void a warranty on a roof. It's all stuff that we have to think forward to do. But I can't tell you that if this doesn't pass, I can spend $3.7 million next year to fix the whole system. But what we can do is try to figure out a way to tackle the building envelope, then tackle air sealing, and figure it out along the lines like that. We get free cash that we can spend. Sometimes it's not always great, sometimes it's more than others, but there's other asks in town too. So we have to make the decision on what we have to do, and we might have to stage it out. Instead of getting done in one complete project, it might take a couple of years to really work on the project, find all the solutions, and make sure, once again, if it goes that route, we're going back out for procurement, out to bid, because we have to. So none of us are ever saying no to fixing the problem. We just have to figure out the best way to move forward, but we have to let this process take its course first.
So can someone...
Can I, Ms. Cavallo, can I make one more comment and you can ask your question?
Yes.
I understand, of course, we all appreciate the budgetary concerns, but I do want to call out that it is quite possible that if we take it in stages, that A, it won't solve the problem, B, that it will cost more money, right? Because prices aren't going down, they're going up. And I think I'm correct in saying that from the get-go, we will lose the $500,000 grant that we've already been rewarded, so.
That was actually going to be my question. Would you still have that $500,000 grant if you're going to do it in stages? So I just need to know that, or make sure that you clarify that if this doesn't go through, you're going to lose $500,000 on fixing something that is causing people and students, children, to be sick in a school for something that we have been band-aiding for 20 plus years. I just need to make sure that people understand that. There's been a lot of work that has gone into securing those grants, and I know it hasn't been easy, especially as a union president and working with the school department. I really appreciate the amount of time and effort that they've put in to rectify the situation. So I just want to make sure that the townspeople realize that if we don't vote this through, or it doesn't get voted through, you're going to lose $500,000 and potentially spend double the project on something that is making people sick at work.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, and Mrs. Cavallo.
Hi, Mr. Gaspar.
So it's a bit alarming to me sitting up here listening to you speak, and I sympathize with you and all the other teachers and the students. But it's a little disheartening for me to listen to you say that this problem has been ongoing for 20 years, and it's really been brought to the Board of Selectmen's attention, we'll call it at best 2 years ago. Okay? So to me, that's very disheartening, because when we talk about future costs going up, think about if this would have been discussed 10 years ago, 5 years ago, how much cheaper it would have been, correct? Correct. So it's something that we all need to try to figure out. I don't have my magic ball to tell you what the townspeople will do, but I can tell you right now, I think the Board of Selectmen should have a plan B in place to do something, because doing nothing won't be the answer.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just want to make sure, social media is not always everybody's friend, and when you see some of the things that are posted that are not necessarily true, I just want to make sure that the townspeople and people are understanding exactly what this is about, and not about the mishandling of money in the school department, or that we're just spending money to spend money. There's an actual problem here. This is not an air conditioning project. This is not what we're doing, an air conditioning project. We're fixing the air quality of the elementary school. So I just want to make sure that the facts are out there. We live in the world of a lot of fake news, so I just want to make sure that there are real facts and people are making good judgments when they're voting, especially because it's affecting my members and the kids that we are here working for, your kids, and their health at school when there's not good air quality, basically.
I agree.
Thank you.
And I can assure you that I will not hear anything from me on social media, because I refuse to be on it.
Okay. Thank you.
All training, 459 Main Street. I just want to get this straight in my head. This is going to be voted on Tuesday's election, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is I think this is a pretty poor way to spend $4 million without having meetings prior to the election Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do, so.
We have it.
Okay, well, the communication was lousy, I'll put it that way. But having said that, I came here with a very negative attitude, but after listening to the previous speaker and doing my homework, I went to the town clerk's office this morning, got all the website to look at. I can see that we have a problem. I was on the building committee 22 years ago, whatever it was. And we had a lousy contractor, okay? We'll start with that. Now this lady just said that mold problem has been there since 2022, 23, 24. I mean, 2002 or 2003. We never heard anything about it for all these years. I know the roof leaked on the elementary school, correct? We just replaced that a few years ago. That was about a 20-year roof, I think. So if this is going to fix the problem, have we identified where this mold is coming from? If this is going to fix it, then I'm for it 100%. But if it's a Band-Aid, we're going to be back here in 5 years and say, well, that didn't work. then that's a big issue. Now, I'd like to ask the engineers here, is it gonna, is this a fix? Or is this a maybe?
Just before we jump in, so again, I think where this was brought to some of the more recent personnel's attention was in the summer of 2023, when we were hit hard with it. We had to, take care of it within a month to open up for school. We thought we had it fixed, we thought we addressed it for it to come back, for us to need professional remediation, right? Ever since the professional remediation, the dehumidifiers in the classrooms, the air purifiers, things like that, we have not had evidence of mold again in the buildings. We actually went as far as testing before remediation, testing after remediation, and these Band-Aid fixes have shown through testing that there was no continued evidence of mold after it was professionally remediated. And we put these minor pieces, minor fixes in place. So,
One other question. Are we talking heat pumps, or is this going to be an air conditioning system?
well, now I'll turn it to the engineers.
Okay.
So these are VRF heat pumps.
Heat pumps.
Yes, so
So that heat and air conditioning.
yes, they can do both, and they will be doing both in this case. So offsetting some of the swing season heating, doing it more efficiently via these heat pumps, and then also maintaining and keeping the oil boiler that's still in place. To your early question about the solution, we were selected as the energy services company for this project. Our main goal, the number one thing that we wrote down on our list to address was this issue of excess humidity in the elementary school. But we had no other ulterior motives. That was it. It was fix the problem, figure out how to do that in the most efficient and most fiscally responsible way over the long term. So not in 1 year, not in 2 years, but over the long term. How do we address the problem and make it so that this isn't just that Band-Aid fix?
All right. Getting back to heat pumps.
Yep.
I had heat pumps put into my home, 60-something years old. Best thing I've ever done. However, when you use the heat, because my house wasn't insulated to today's codes, the heat is not the same. So I don't know if you're going to insulate the schools and use just heat pumps to heat it. Is that part of this project?
So it'll be, there's a couple different scopes of work that Patrick mentioned. It's not just the heat pumps, it's also building envelope improvements, controls, duct sealing, and more. So it really, we're taking a comprehensive approach to fixing this problem. And to your question about heat pumps operating, the heat pumps nowadays are designed to below 0 degrees operation. But we envision these heat pumps.
You got to tighten up the building.
Yes, we are tightening up the building. We're doing extensive building envelope upgrades, weatherization, and those heat pumps will operate in heating probably down to about 30 degrees, and then your boilers will take over after that. So it's a combination approach. We don't envision them 100% taking over right away, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Max.
Absolutely. To give folks an idea of our solution, right, in case that wasn't made clear, we are essentially engineering a central solution, right? So every single CFM of air flowing through the central unit will pass through the coils for dehumidification and will pass through the active filters for purification of the air, right? So from that regard, this is as long-term of a solution as we can responsibly design, utilizing the existing infrastructure, right? That's also our consideration, is that it has to integrate in a cost-effective manner into the existing infrastructure. There are many solutions out there, and some are better for this school than others. Now, in terms of the heat pump aspect, the heat pump during certain conditions is simply a more cost-effective manner to operate the system, to heat, right? So we do still have the hot water coils, existing hot water coils in the zones, so that hot water is fully available. But during certain conditions, such as mild,
So you have two systems.
correct, the boilers will be maintained, the boilers will not be removed.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So are these heat pumps going to work 24/7 in the summer?
They will not be.
Are they going to be, the custodians going to have air conditioning at night when they're cleaning the schools? How does it, the electricity bill is going to be a little more expensive, I think.
That's part of the controls, right? With intelligent controls that's integrated into the new system. So that's where we control how do we set back the buildings.
Computerized?
Yes.
Computerized control.
Absolutely. Give the staff better visibility, earlier diagnostics of any maintenance issues, and also help optimize the operations.
I just want to address a misconception too again about the cooling, right? So we're going to use the cooling to combat the humidity. There's not going to be controls in each classroom for the teacher to say, hey, I feel like it being 62 and cold in the classroom today so I can wear my sweatshirt. The cooling is going to be controlled as Max said by set points that are built in and engineered to hit that humidity level and nothing more and nothing less. So that the cooling and heating will turn on responsive to the humidity, but we will not be turning the heat down because it's not 90 degrees outside and we want to operate in our t-shirt inside. It's going to come on relative to the humidity levels that are being measured in the
So it's used for humidity, basically.
It's going to be used for humidity, yes.
Because a heat pump, in other words, people, let's use if you have a thermostat in your home and you have oil heat, you put it at 70 and it'll stay at 70. A heat pump, to get it at 70, sometimes you gotta go to 78 to get your house at 70. The thermostats aren't working the same as my system. Maybe I get the wrong system. I probably have the same contractors.
I think it's the cookies.
But anyway, we're not gonna have air-conditioned schools per se, because that's the word out on the street. They're gonna air-condition the schools. So what you're saying,
Right.
the heat pumps are to remove the humidity,
Yes.
okay?
The goal of these heat pumps is to remove the humidity. It will not be to keep the schools at 62 degrees all year round, right?
There's no way you're gonna control each classroom to each teacher's liking, I can tell you that.
No.
I think you know that, right?
We are picking set points and schedules and
I wish you luck on Tuesday, but I really think that you should have had more input from the townspeople, because a lot of people have no clue what they're voting for Tuesday. So, thank you.
Hello, hi, my name is Richard Cartwright. I'm from Wing Lane in Acushnet, and I was on the building committee with him when we did this school. And I probably put in more trained unit ventilators than you guys ever seen. Okay, I've been building schools for 40 years. I just want to know how you're going to control. Well, first of all, is the control system going to be a new trained control system, or is it going to be upgrades to the existing one?
it will be a new training building management system integrated.
So is that your tracker system?
It's a new
Tracer.
Tracer SC Plus, yes, and it's partially because more cost effective to do factory installed controls on new equipment was really the deciding factor there, and it integrates better into existing systems.
Okay, and the other thing is what that woman was saying, the room's overheating. I'm not too familiar, or I can't remember, I should say. Are those all the unit ventilators in the classrooms over there? That school, is it just main rooftops?
This school has unit ventilators.
This school
Next door has
the other one has rooftops.
Rooftops and central air handlers
Okay, so that's where you're,
with a hot water coil, and we'll add the DX coil.
and the coils you're gonna be adding to the rooftop units for the humidity control?
We'll be adding the coils to the existing central air handlers, and then there are a few packaged rooftop units that we're converting to dual fuel.
Okay, so it's not a full package unit, it's just a split system with an air handler inside?
Some are packaged and some are with split systems with the DX coil added.
So the existing HME units,
Yeah.
of which serve predominantly the classrooms, right, will get a coil.
A coil.
That can do either heating or cooling depending on the heat pump with controls.
All right. And I guess the other thing is that room's not, sorry, went back to my unit ventilator scenario, because I couldn't understand how you're gonna control the heat, but apparently the heating valves in these units aren't working.
The heat pump will have its control, right?
Right, okay, that's to take care of the humidity. But what's gonna take care of what this woman was talking about, the room overheating?
That's part of our scope as well, to address the deficiencies of existing systems, because we will not just install a brand new system and not touch anything that integrates.
Right, and the other question, did anybody ever check the dampers and see if the outdoor air dampers were working?
Yeah, so in repairing some of those deficiencies, like outdoor air dampers not working, actuators being failed, sensors failed, we've included funds to cover all of those deficiencies as well. So these aged air handlers,
Are those dampers and actuators going to be replaced or upgraded?
yes, the ones that we found, and it's really
Oh, just the ones that you found that weren't working?
right. It's difficult to figure out the ones that aren't right now because we don't have an insight into it aside from walking and touching every single one. But that's part of the retro commissioning process of installing the new control system. We'll be tweaking, and as we find these failures, we'll replace them and repair them. So it'll refresh them for the next.
Just out of curiosity, how many main or air handlers do we have over there to take care of the school?
We have 11 HFE units over there that will add a coil. One HFE, it's a very small unit, we will not add a coil to that.
Okay.
And there's also 3 RTUs, but they are relatively small.
And when this all gets said and done, is there a balancing issue going to be put in place to make sure that the airflow is correct for the rooms that were?
Yes, that's part of the retro commission.
And is there any list or a plan to look at and see what type of equipment is being put in? Maybe that's just for me because I'm curious.
We have the list of equipment, yeah, the investment grade audit.
So the investment grade audit, as Morgan was speaking to, has the list of the equipment on it, and actually, more recently posted the full 400+ page investment grade audit on our website, so by all means, jump in.
No, I got nothing else to do. I can talk.
Great questions.
All right, I guess that's, thank you.
Thank you. Alright, from the audience first.
Sorry. Bob Union, Needful Drive. With all due respect, I'm sure you've put a lot of hours and hard work into this. What are the other plans that, maybe this would be directed at the superintendent, how many more options have you had to look at before you determined that train would probably be the best solution? And what would those suggestions have been different than what train's offering?
Yeah, so we had quite a few stakeholders vet out the vendors who came in. We had a bunch of engineers, not just from training, looking at both the schools. We had Siemens, I mentioned another company, and we had a very extensive rubric. We did interviews with the companies, and then we also called references. We called municipalities, we contacted other school districts to just check on the work. And we decided, everyone individually scored on the companies, and we decided on train as our turnkey project. This is what we're proposing. We think that there's lots of life left in these school buildings. This would be phase 1. We know that eventually we're going to have to look at Ford Middle School, but right now, to say we're bleeding at the elementary school. We have, I don't know if the townspeople realize, but we have staff people who have been out on workers' comp. We have substitute teachers in for staff. And when kids go through their grade levels, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they get one chance at it. And when you're going to first grade and you don't have your teacher there for an extensive period, you can't get that back. So it really does impact a lot of things that people don't realize. So since I've been on and the problem has come to light, we've really taken a comprehensive approach with all stakeholders. We formed that steering committee. We want to do what's best. We believe that our schools are the cornerstone of this community. I try to treat the schools as my own home. I don't want to spend taxpayers' money on, $100 million school. It's not necessary. We feel with this project and the engineers, because I'm certainly not the expert, we feel the engineers have told us, many engineers have told us the way to go. This is what we're proposing. If it doesn't go through, I'm concerned because as Ms. Cavallo stated, there is an uptick going on right now in the school building. There are people out right now. I've been dealing for the last couple of years with parents who are complaining to me about their children's illness, the headaches, etc. I'm doing my best, honestly, to rectify this problem. This is not an overnight fix. My concern is if this doesn't pass, how much longer are we going to take to come up with a different solution? You know, I feel as though we've worked really hard to get this project where it's at for the voters, and again, I'll respect whatever the voters think, but I hope that they see that we are a cornerstone of our community. This is why people move to Acushnet. We're very proud of our schools, and we have great staff and great students. We want to continue that, but we need a healthy and safe environment to do so.
I understand, and I'm not criticizing, believe me, I know there's a lot of work. I was involved with the schools when my children were here. There's similar schools. Does this school have the same problem, or is the system, because this school is newer, the system that's working in here is keeping the mold and condensation out?
So I'm going to address that quickly, defer to training for some of the engineering aspects of it. But again, this building's engineered completely different with in-room human ventilators. So there isn't a centralized system. It's room by room pieces of equipment that you control to control the environment. We've had better luck with those unit ventilators in this building. If your first question was a question of procurement, so traditional construction procurement, you have a design phase which costs upfront money, right? So you have to pay. So similarly for our AES roof project, which is about a $2 million project, the design fee for that project is $130,000. You have to come up with that money upfront, right? So there's a sunk cost right away. Then you put it up to construction and say, what's it going to cost to actually do the work? That's where we're at right now. We got to evade the design phase through this type of procurement, and we have the price of construction for you at hand. It's fixed firm at 4.2. If we enter into a contract at that, tariffs, anything else can increase, the liabilities on Trent to fund those costs.
I'm not disputing that at all.
No,
I just want to make certain that we looked at other avenues. So with just one product.
So leading up to the process, again, we discussed with many of these engineers and environmentalists, and they all landed on the equipment. No one's going to come in here and do mechanical engineering, structural engineering, electrical engineering free of charge. Again, it's going to have upfront costs, and that's that design fee. And then for us to propose a project off of that, $1 million or $4 million project after the design fee, for it to fail would mean we're never recouping that money. So call it $200,000 plus $200,000 in incentives that we secured, another $500,000 grant. There's essentially $1 million out the window. So this was a very thoughtful process, strategic process, and it helped us bring the cost down for the residents. We didn't build this project saying we want a pool, we want this, we want that. We said we want to address the problem at a cost that's efficient and effective for the community.
I appreciate that. Coming tonight, I had no information whatsoever. These are just questions that I thought would be beneficial for me to make my decision.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I may add to the procurement from a technical perspective.
Go ahead.
Thank you. From a technical perspective, we did consider many options, right? Each building is unique, each solution is unique. For example, in a building that has available natural gas, then the dehumidification options might be different from a building that is central with this infrastructure. So we did, as a preliminary phase, explore many options. That's what Mr. McIntyre mentioned previously as the best, the good, better, best approach, right? Because we look at the suite of solutions and we work together with a consultant for Acushnet to make sure that we come up with a solution that's the best for the community.
And I feel bad about the communication aspect, right? So our means of communication has been newsletters to our families and our students. We don't have outreach directly to emails of everybody in the community. We use the platform of our school committee meetings, our website, things like that to communicate, right? So we've been talking about this at a school committee level since, over a year ago. All of those meetings, for those who don't know, are video and audio recorded and posted to a YouTube website that you can go back and view those. In addition, if you go onto the town website, you can subscribe to all different department meetings and committee meetings that they have, so that you're notified when they're having those meetings and what the agenda of those meetings are. So again, I'm not placing blame anywhere other than I'm frustrated too to hear that, but there are workarounds for community members that aren't aware to be able to view those videos and assign themselves, or, subscribe, to the other meetings and agendas that are going out there for all boards in the town.
I'm going to let Mr. Howcroft make a comment, and then we'll take you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is John Howcroft. I'm 35 Perry Hill Road in Acushnet. The issue with me is that, first of all, I have no children in the schools. I don't have any grandchildren in the schools. I don't have any great-grandchildren in the schools. But the point is, I am a taxpayer, and I'm proud to say that my tax bill was $10,000 this year in property tax. That puts me at the assessed, for this debt exclusion would be $37 for the average, taxpayer, with a home, and I would be twice as that. But given that, how important it is to have climate control in the schools. Protection of our children's health, the staff's health. I could never face my neighbor with his children and say to them, they got injured, sick by mold issues and other air quality related issues, that I really didn't want to spend $74 per year in addition to my taxes. I didn't want to do that. Even if you got sick, that's their problem. I just didn't want to spend that extra money. How unconscionable would I be as a human being? Okay? We spend $17 million plus, maybe, for next year's budget. How can you effectively teach and have children grow if they're getting sick? How can staff teach well if they are sick, or taking sick days, forced to take sick days? So you have absentees, and you have a lack of deliverance of your educational plans. So it's really to me, it's a conscious issue. Climate, 20-some-odd years ago, when Paul Tran was dealing with some of the issues in the school building, climate change was not a big issue then, but it is now. We're going to get more rain, we're going to get more wind, we're going to get more moisture. So we're bound to have increasing amount of problems in the future. And that is directly affecting our children's health. So I just make a plea to people when they go to the ballot, to think of that. Our children's welfare, our staff's welfare, our obligation as an employer to our staff is for them to have decent working conditions and healthy working conditions. So this is why I support this public hearing to say, please vote for that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howcroft.
Hi, John Terrence, 1 Gloria's Way. I think you guys are all doing a great job. I think this is a necessary. This is necessary action for you guys to take. But I'm just curious how'd you arrive at the Prop 2.5 as the way of funding this? Because I'm afraid that might be the biggest barrier here to getting this done.
Just do the total scope, total scope of the project.
it wasn't in the budget. So when we were looking at the grand scheme of things, how to get it fixed in the process and the phased approach that Patrick and the superintendent and the rest of the school committee put together, we couldn't cut a $3.7 to $4.2 million check for it.
Right, but you could you secure a bond and figure a way to pay that debt from other sources without needing to get a vote?
Yes, but not massive.
No, that's not massive. So for example, that repayment's roughly, it's less than 1% of the overall budget for the town. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, it's less than 1.5% of the school budget. So with that said, right, how many times have you gone to a department in a year and said, hey, can you cut a little bit, right? I mean, and you did that across the board, the thing's paid for without, so in other words, this thing's kind of relying on people to vote to get this done. And when I think of like coming up of a plan B, my plan B would be, secure the funding for this and figure out a different way of paying for it without a problem. Because, well, I'm just saying, like, the way the town's gonna vote is they're gonna think, hey, we already paid for this. That's the way they're gonna vote. They're like, hey, we got these buildings, like, you have to maintain them. It's like with my house, if something goes, like the roof leaks, I'm responsible. That's in my budget, I gotta figure it out. So that's, I think, the expectation of the voters, and so when you leave it up to them, they might not, understand the scope of the work that you're trying to do with a real problem that you're trying to solve. And so if you could exclude a vote from that happening, I think that would be, a better way of making it happen. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, Mrs. Jess, I appreciate your comments, great comments. I think this came up at the last hearing we had. This school committee made it very clear that we were open to other options other than a debt exclusion, and we made that clear from the beginning, but unfortunately, that was the only option that was presented, and not trying to move the project forward didn't really seem like a valid option, and so we felt like we had to put it to the vote.
Yeah, I just feel like the debt repayments are very, rather nominal relative to the overall, budget for the town. That's just my thoughts. And the people of this town, the way they're going to vote, I mean, my taxes last year went up 17%, another 12% this year. My Eversource is up 30%. The water bill, water and sewer, because I've got water and sewer, like that's up 30%. Like, I think it's a tough avenue. That's just my thoughts. And I think your plan B should be, hey, no matter what, we're securing this debt. We're figuring out how to fix this problem. But we also have to figure out within our existing budget, how do we make it happen? That's my thoughts on this.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? Thoughts?
Appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Jesse Ellis, 922 Middle Road. So a couple of just comments and then a few follow-up questions, actually piggybacking on the last gentleman's. So I think one thing that's very important to take into consideration is not just the humidity control, which I understand is the primary scope of the project, but one thing that we've mentioned a few times is better normalizing the temperature and the overall comfort of the school buildings at large. Now, I know, for myself, moderate-sized home, we have a poured concrete basement. We run, in the summertime, a couple of dehumidifiers pretty much all summer, and quite frankly, they're noisy. They generate a lot of heat. They heat the basement up like crazy that the heat pump unit upstairs can't quite keep up with. So when you think about that in the scope of a very large building like this, not only are you generating a lot of constant noise during classroom hours, but obviously you're generating a lot of excess heat, which speaks to the 80-degree plus temperatures that we've seen in some classrooms. Now, I'm sure that anybody who went to public school in any large facility like this can remember when they went. I was in these schools myself. Especially when you get towards the end of the spring, early summertime, I mean, it is virtually impossible to have a productive school session when the kids are sweltering in their seats. They're sweating, it makes everybody drowsy, it's very difficult to focus. Now, on top of that, we're also looking at the constant noise generated by these classroom dehumidifiers. Now, if anybody's ever worked in a building that has a window unit air conditioner, it's not dissimilar from that. And trying to listen to instruction and be engaged in class when there's that constant level of noise, it's very, very difficult, and even for an adult. I mean, when we're talking about 7, 8, and 9-year-old children, they don't have the level of stress tolerance that adults do. They just don't. So I think that it's been somewhat understated what a significant impact just in the daily learning environment there's been because of the sort of Band-Aid solutions that we've had to put in place, which I think really makes it apparent that this is a really critically important project, at least in my eyes. Now, there's a lot of costs involved, and to the last gentleman's point, I'd be very interested to know what the next step is if this vote is turned down at town elections. Are we still planning to find other means to move forward with the project, or at that point are we stuck? Because we certainly wouldn't want to see $1 million go down the toilet. You know, the sunk cost fallacy is a tough one in business, but we're not talking about business right now. We're talking about public health and the future of the town. So if this were to be voted down, what are the next steps? Is the project dead in its tracks, or do we have other alternatives to find separate funding solutions?
Mr. Chairman, like I mentioned before, at this point, nobody is opposed to fixing the health and safety generated issues at the schools. There's always going to be the next step, so if this, on the 22nd, this fails, on the 23rd, I'm sure I'm going to be on the phone with Patrick. It's something that I've told him that I was committed to try to solve any way we can. We just have to take it step by step. We can't, I mean, what Mr. Tabb said, you know, we are going through every budget this year, line by line, dollar by dollar, reducing paper clips, staplers. I know I'm getting dramatic about that, but it's true. We're really cutting anything that we deem unnecessary to move forward with just typical increases year over year, health insurance costs, everything like that. So we have to evaluate the entire budget regardless, and we're doing that. If we come up with a solution in the process, there's a lot of figures that aren't finalized yet either, so we don't even have those answers yet. But I'm in town hall 3 to 4 times a week at minimum, and we're always working to try to figure something out. So it's not something that we're just going to say this is dead in the water and walk away from. I mean, both my children are in the elementary school, so you know, I hear what they say. I have a lot of friends that are teachers. I have a lot of friends that are administrators in other districts. I hear it from all different angles, so I'm sympathetic to the entire process, but I'm also very sympathetic to the financial health of the town, and we have to look at every possible avenue, but we also have to realize that hard decisions are going to have to be made as well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to school and teachers having to fight over the number of photocopies that they could make for their classrooms, and unfortunately, that's just the reality of the budget. Now, instead of photocopies, we're looking at things like ink cartridges and paper clips, to your point. So, one of the questions that I had with regards to ongoing costs of the system, not the initial purchase, the installation, that kind of thing. Will we have any sort of ongoing contractual cost commitments to train for future trainings? Let's say we have staff turnover in 10 years, 15 years, what have you. And has that been factored into sort of ongoing figures in the budget? Not just to train, but also any other tangential costs that could be related to the project. I know that one of the things that's it can be very difficult to work within the school budget because of the very large number of fixed costs that we have. And that could be in the form of health insurance, it could be in the form of contractual obligations. So what thought has been put into some of those other ongoing costs?
So naturally, training is, I think it's already mentioned today, is a huge portion of the passing from construction to long-term maintenance, right? So we ensure that everyone who is available to be trained is trained on our systems. But we've also mentioned that, and and recently happened to me, where we had someone new come in to a maintenance team where we have a long-term relationship with, and they said, we have this new person, can you please come and train? And we did. No bill for that, absolutely. We think training is super important. And as for long-term maintenance and contractual obligations, that's up to the school district to decide, really. We have a guarantee for these energy savings, so naturally we expect that these systems be maintained over the full term of the agreement, but that doesn't, it's not required that that be done by training. It could be done by a portion or a combination, all it really depends.
Perfect, thank you. And then last question, we may have covered this during the presentation, but what's the projected completion timeline for this project?
It really depends on when we kick it off.
So we'll assume that it gets voted in the affirmative next week.
Yes, I believe that we still have the project going to town meeting, which would be in June. I think if we're looking at end of June to really start and kick off the project, that's when we order equipment. After we order equipment, we have lead times. So lead times on this equipment are pretty fluid right now. There's some big changes happening in the HVAC industry regarding refrigerants. So specifically with this type of equipment. So it's kind of something that's changing pretty rapidly. Some of the equipment we have right now is in stock. It might not be by July, August next year, right? So it's kind of constantly changing, but we envision that we would be moving very, very quickly once we get the go-ahead to move forward on the project.
Would the work be taking place during school session, or is it all projected to take place during summer breaks? Are we looking at completion by fall of next year?
So again, it somewhat depends, right, on when we can actually get equipment. In certain situations, we've been able to work while kids are in school, as long as it's not in occupied areas. We're incredibly sensitive, like you mentioned, about sound and aggravation of being noisy and loud during construction when kids are in school. So sometimes we've been known to work second shifts. We've also been known to work on the weekends. We work over school breaks, so sometimes on winter breaks, April break, February break. And then naturally our primary period of doing most of the construction usually is summertime, but we make ourselves pretty flexible when we can.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
David Flynn, 36 Pondview Road. Because I'm not have any questions about the merit of the project, it's really more about the procurement and the savings. So I just want to clarify, you just said this is an energy management services contract under 25A, is that correct? So that falls under the Department of Energy Resources under the state, correct?
Correct.
So this is a question, because on their website, the DOER's website, they have a pretty comprehensive definition of what these contracts are. Point number 6, guaranteed savings. EMS contracts involve a guarantee of achieved savings by the ESCO. So what is the guaranteed savings in this contract?
Don't think I have the exact dollar value on the top of my head. I believe it's in the thousands. It's 4 figures each year. So that accumulated over 20 years, escalated by an energy escalation rate, usually conservatively at about 3%. So I think what we're getting at with this question is that when you're adding new equipment, naturally you're adding energy consumption, right? With the project being heat pumps that are also offsetting some of the fuel usage with oil, those somewhat even out. Especially when we take into account the building management systems, building envelope upgrades, and the duct sealing that will also all save energy. So we've taken a comprehensive approach here where we combined adding a little bit of energy consumption with saving both KWH and also thermos in the process, or oil usage in the process.
So I guess my concern is for these, say $3,000-4,000 a year, looking at annual cost of $300,000 per year slide. The very next sentence of the definition says, these guaranteed savings in these contracts are, quote, normally structured so that the loan repayment is less than or equal to the savings guaranteed amount. In this way, you are short of being able to meet your loan or lease payment obligation from the savings generated by the project. So it just doesn't seem to meet the definition of an energy services contract.
So Beth might actually have a really good response to this if she wants to chime in after me, but Massachusetts legislation actually allows for savings to pay for the project in part or in whole. It's not required in Massachusetts that it 100% pay for itself, and especially with a project like this where you're addressing a comfort issue and an energy issue, it's really a combination of both.
I completely get that. Cost of equipment is much escalated since this law came out.
Yeah.
It's just that we're talking about like a 1% repayment under a section of the law that allows this type of procurement to happen without any competition, and yet we're really not doing the spirit of the law. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem to meet the definition when we're saving 1% of the annual cost. And getting back to what Mr. Tebs was, I just wish there was a better way to fund it. I'm not against the solution for the building at all. I just don't really see. I guess I'm just questioning the procurement and the payment structure, that's all.
And thank you for your questions. I understand where the questions are coming from. It's not uncommon when you talk about this procurement, get these questions a lot. So with performance contracting, when the district went out to bid, which it was a formal bid on the central register for an RFQ for qualifications, those qualifications not only included, like Dr. Bailey mentioned, resumes, previous projects we've done, references, etc., but it also included a markup sheet that we had to submit that we used to develop pricing. So that's how we develop all of our projects, and that was used, that and the cost for the audit was used to select the vendor. So each vendor had to put together essentially their pricing beforehand. So it didn't have a specific, like a typical RFP, a scope of work that we responded to with one price. It had essentially the structure of how to go about pricing. So it's not non-competitive by any means. They received pricing from each vendor that responded to the RFP.
I'm fully aware of how the project, these projects work. I'm just, again, just wish it didn't have to be an override.
So, Mr. Flynn, we totally agree. We wish there was another option other than an override, but I just have to reiterate, the only option that has been presented to this committee at this point is to move forward with an override. And so again, we felt like we couldn't do nothing. We had to try to get this through. This committee is more than welcome to exploring other options if they were presented to us, but they haven't been.
Trained selling an energy savings contract. It would have been nice if it was more than 1%, but okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, most of you know who I am. I'm Mike Acushnet, Chairman of the Finance Committee here in town, Acushnet, Beechwood Drive. I gotta say, it actually feels nicer to be down here than up there. It's usually I'm up there, but tonight it feels good to be down here. First of all, I want to say, as the Finance Committee Chairman, I care about the fiscal health of this town. As a healthcare provider personally, I also care about the health of the buildings, the school buildings that we have, so I can wear both hats. You know, last year's annual town meeting, the Finance Committee was asked indirectly to be involved in this project. And we've participated and we've attended a lot of meetings. I spent a lot of time analyzing everything Patrick's done. I know Patrick has spent a lot of time doing this and researching and behind the scenes work. I know how it goes. And a lot of it goes unrecognized. So we were asked, we've analyzed things. So, you know, some of my concerns along the way was, how are we getting any other companies involved to get quotes from other companies besides Train? And I'm not knocking Train. You know, you might have the right solution. I don't know that for 100% as a fact. But some of my concerns along the way, as well as my Finance Committee members' concerns, were, are we exploring any other options besides some of the high-tech stuff? Patrick, you said the air quality has been tested and it's been okay, as far as you know, to date, correct? Correct. Obviously, you can't keep mitigating it with dehumidifiers in every room, and I understand that. Something has to be done. I mean, this can't continue. So, I believe that at minimum, the building envelope and the structural issues have to be addressed. And one of my concerns is, if this doesn't pass, what is the plan B? And you know, I've reiterated that. And, you know, communicating. We definitely need to have a plan B. And what is that going to entail? I don't have all the answers to that. I did, as you know, I reached out to a company by the name of Logistech, and I believe you looked into them, because I know they do a lot of schoolwork, and they strictly do dehumidification projects in schools. And you came back with an explanation. Apparently their project wasn't going to be as cost effective. The other thing I took upon myself was to reach out to Carver Public Schools, because I had heard that they were dealing with a similar issue in one of their schools. So I reached out to the superintendent's office there, and they got back to me because they had a similar moisture humidity issue in one of the buildings, and they utilized a local engineering company out of Dartmouth, and then they hired another contractor, I think out of Weymouth, to handle all the structural issues that they had in their school, with moisture getting in, water seepage, wherever it was coming from. And apparently it worked great for them. So those were my issues as, being a chairman of the finance committee. We're responsible for the entire town's finances, not just the school. And the school is a big part of it, believe me. We know that as a finance committee when we look at everybody's budget. And this is an important project. And one way or another, this has to go forward. I believe Mr. Hinckley or Mr. Gasper had said previously, it may have to go in steps. And one of my thought processes, let's say it fails at the ballot, because we don't know what's going to happen. We have to have a plan B. I don't know if Train would be the company that would just do the structural issues, or we go back out to bid with a private contractor and have them come in and address all the structural issues and get some different quotes, and then retest the air quality and see where we're at. If there's still issues at that point, after everything is sealed up, then absolutely we got to go to the higher tech solution. And I know that Eversource dangles the carrots out there. There's the $500,000, and that's no chump change, and I think that's an important thing to consider. However, I believe that would always probably be available in this state. If it's not available right now, it'll probably be available at a later date, because they're still going to make those kind of grants available to do projects like this.
Mrs. Boucher, keep going on comment. The reality is the grant is on the table now.
Right.
There's no guarantee that the grant is on the table later, so let's not lose sight. That's $500,000 that is available today.
I
would
recognize
also
that.
add that we've already done a comprehensive audit. That has already been done. That's looked at all of the things you've talked about, and we've also gone out with a comprehensive procurement and we looked at companies beyond Train. So I guess what I'm hearing is that we should repeat that process and keep kicking the can. I don't know. I feel like we've done a lot of this work already.
I know you have. Yeah, I get it. My question is, if it doesn't go through, what are you going to do?
Well, I think that's a problem we have to address together with the select board and finance committee. The debt exclusion was the option that was presented to us as a way to do this. If it's not a debt exclusion, then we need to understand what the options are.
Look, I know you went through the whole process. I've lived it for the last several months. And one of the things that bothered me a little bit is I don't feel like we've had enough public outreach prior to tonight's meeting.
Yep.
I don't think there's been enough.
There's been hearings, and as we talked about at every one of our school committees.
But does everybody watch the school committee meetings? I do, because I'm involved in the town. But I don't know if all the townspeople do. So I don't know how much they're privy to some of this information. And that's part of the problem. And I'm not opposed to the project, believe me. If it's $70 a year, fortunately that's not going to hurt me, okay? But for some other residents it might. I'm not going to speak for everybody in this room. And it's the finance committee's responsibility to look out for the entire town. And that's pretty much all I'm saying. I'm not opposed to the project in any way. I just want to make sure that we're gonna be able to do something, maybe at a lesser cost, but at least we have to address the building envelope no matter what. In case this doesn't pass. That's pretty much all my main concern. I'm not against the project.
This committee is committed to solving the problem, and we will continue to explore all options to solve the problem, but that requires a partnership with the board and the townspeople to make that happen. And we're here today trying to do a debt exclusion because that's the option that has been presented to us thus far. At our last hearing, I think Mr. Walner, I wish he was here, I think challenged the school committee, and his insinuation was that perhaps we fund that from the school operating budget. We're not going to do this or try to solve this problem at the impact of our kids' education and fund it through an operating budget. It's a capital project. We need to come up with a way to solve the problem.
I completely understand that you cannot fund this through your operating budget, and I'm not insinuating that, and I never did.
I would suggest you did. I'm just stating the facts of why we're here and what we will continue to do.
Right, and I think this has to get done, one way or the other. If it's going to be the whole aspect of the project, I don't know. It's going to be up to the townspeople, really, because they're going to have the final say at town meeting if it gets through the ballot process. But like I said, I have nothing against Train. Seem like a very good company, and I'm sure you've done a lot of these projects in other schools, correct?
Correct.
That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the speaker brought up many good points. One thing I can help clarify is that this solution is not just a high-tech solution, right? This is a fiscally responsive solution. For example, we could put an air conditioning only unit, and during the summer, it can do the dehumidification function that typically AC units do. But if we would, the project will miss out on the decarbonization grant, that real money, right? That I know the team as a whole fought hard for the application, and now it's secured. So when you net out that cost, the heat pump system is a more cost-effective solution than just adding an AC. Even though it's a newer technology, so some folks might view it as a higher tech, right? It is a reliable system, and it is a cost-effective solution for this building, for this specific issue. Similarly, some other schools, I mentioned earlier that if a building has available natural gas, for example, a desiccant system for those that are interested might be a cost-effective solution, right? However, in this particular building, natural gas is not available, heating oil is available, and for this system, to install a desiccant system would not be the right solution, would be very expensive, right? We also have to consider others such as electrical availability, structural availability in terms of when you locate the equipment on the roof, where can we locate and how much can we put on the roof. We just want to clarify from those points. We have really developed the most cost-effective solution to tackle the problem that we were, the humidity issue that we were brought in to tackle. We did not aim to have a higher technology solution or have a newer solution or fancier solution. It is really the most cost-effective solution that can address the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment.
Go ahead.
People talk about Plan B and the grants and all. Just turn on the news every day. Grants are drying up. It's coming from Washington. In another year or two, grants are going to be obsolete practically. We have $500,000 as a grant towards this project. If we lose that, there's not going to be any replacement. So just, let's just get real. Let's not be whistling Dixie about grants in the future that are going to save us for our fiscal health. It's not going to be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Director of the Finance Committee, 595 Main Street. I will commend you guys for choosing Train. Number one, I work for a mechanical engineering firm, and we use guys very frequently, so they definitely know what they're talking about. I will definitely support that. A couple of questions. I did ask this during our Finance Committee joint meetings. Patrick, you know the question I'm talking about, but to ask is the closet. This, just to make it perfectly clear, is not including the repairs to the gymnasium closet, which is leaking. Is there any other part of the facility that is also not being taken care of, or that we're not aware of? Is this actually, besides the gym, is this going to control resealing the rest of the building? That's all I have.
Yes, so that will not address the gym closet. We discussed this for the community, right? This is an issue again that dates back to 2004. We found paperwork disclosing water infiltration in this closet. Why it was left and not addressed, I have no idea. When there's sideways rain, there tends to be infiltration into this closet due to the flashing at the wall roof intersection. We've been chasing our tails on that closet for just as long as this project, if not longer. We've repointed, we've sealed, we've had an architectural company, or engineering firm, whatever you want to call it, come out, cut a section of brick out to see what was behind that wall, what was going on, and again, it was concluded that it's a flashing issue. Similar to what we've talked about today, that's a construction project. There's no necessary energy savings in that we'll probably get by DOER, to Mr. Flynn's point, right? So where we're at right now on that closet was a crossroads. We're pinching our pennies, hoping that we have savings in our operating budget to pay for the design fee for that project, $40,500 for a 20-foot closet design. With that, there's going to be a construction bid. We don't know what that cost is expected. They've commented probably upwards to $100,000, if not more. So that is a factor. At the end of the day, the rain that comes into this closet, it isn't regular, and this equipment that's in place is still going to be able to combat that environment in that closet while we work for a permanent solution, which would be, ultimately from our savings or free cash or another ask. So I hope that helps.
So my next question is to train. Have you guys actually run calculations based on any estimated moisture that's infiltrating into that closet?
Yes, we have a comprehensive energy model, correct. We have
and you guys are happy that this will take care of that problem, take care of the moisture inflow, the moisture coming in from that closet?
Yes, and we will have humidity sensors in addition to temperature and CO2 sensors in the spaces as well.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew Travis, Noyer Street. I was just wondering, through all the reports, the analysis that you did beforehand, did you find a cause for the mold?
Again, the general consensus, and they can shed more into what their audit found was failing equipment, lack of control of the airflow internally and externally. We're cycling air from the outside environment into our school, it's going through filters, so on and so forth. The lack of controls around all of that is causing an environment that we can't control. And during the humid seasons, we're pulling in that humidity and creating, an unattainable, for lack of a better term, I guess, environment. So it's a mechanical issue. Provides the building envelope.
That's what the HVAC company determined, but before that, when you were looking at everything, did the actual root cause of the mold come up? So I just heard 20 years we've been having mold coming in, there's going to be a closet that's leaking water that is not going to be repaired. It's on slab. There's a lot of different reasons why we could be getting mold, and in those comprehensive analysis, was there ever a determination of why we're getting the mold? Can definitely appreciate that solving the issue of removing the moisture from the air and the mechanicals being the end resolution that's needed could definitely end up being the solution. Get that 100%. But the root cause of why there's an excess amount of moisture and mold developing in the building, has that specific answer been delivered?
Well, so again, through analysis, to my understanding, it was lack of cleanliness and humidity. We've addressed the cleanliness, and we're addressing the humidity with these big fixes now. We haven't had an issue since then, so that tells us the solution is working.
The mold usually occurs when there's insufficient airflow or uncontrolled airflow or system. So, in terms of where the mold is coming into the building, if there's a leaky envelope, there are leaky ducts where air is going to unconditioned spaces, where there's condensation, but chance of condensation. And that's similar to our homes, right? If we have a basement that is under-ventilated and that's prone to high humidity, that might be a higher risk for mold as well. So it is not uncommon for mold to develop. I wouldn't exaggerate to say that you have a serious problem when you have mold, but it does indicate that the mechanical system is not performing as engineered. So over years, it is also not uncommon for building systems to not be well maintained. We reiterate that maintenance is very important, right? So with this, we are cognizant that we are not just going to install a new system and not take care of the existing. As we install a new system, now the sensors go in, the new controls go in, we have better visibility, and we go through the retro commissioning at that stage to fix any actuators that will work together with the system and to have better data to make sure that mold does not occur, humidity does not occur. Mold is really a predominantly humidity, airflow and humidity.
100%. Part of the reason I'm asking the question and what I do professionally is find out why houses are getting mold. There's always a myriad of different reasons why it could be, but the big thing is I can always pin it down to a reason. And then the solution definitely could be in the HVAC, we go across that way, but it doesn't seem like we've found the underlying issue, but we have found a solution to overcome the problem that's
I don't know if that's a question, but again, I can't speak to what happened 20 years ago when I haven't been in the district that long. What we know is summer 2023, which was a record year for humidity, is when we had the problem. That wasn't humidity that we created inside of our building, that was an outside environment infiltrating itself into our building. Again, there's a ton of data on this that we have, a ton of reports from different engineers, a ton of studies and testing that we've gone through. I can't recall all of it off the top of my head at this point in time, but the general consensus was mechanical failure leading to infiltration of humidity from outside of the building.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman? May I? Go ahead. Please try. So Ms. Cavallo spoke earlier and told us about this problem that's been lingering for roughly 20 years. And as I said, it's disheartening to hear that problem's been going on. And I think we, the Board of Selectmen, along with the school committee, should be having dialogue with each other. I know I will do it with my board because I can't let this problem just continue. I don't think any of us want this problem to continue. However, trying to find $3.5 million if there's $500,000 or $700,000 in grants, that's not easy to come up with in one swat. We did do it. I think it was Mr. Tavis talking about trying to absorb it. A little history about what the Board of Selectmen has done over the last decade is a number of millions of dollars worth of projects without asking the taxpayers for debt exclusion. I campaigned on that issue. I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of the Board of Selectmen's record in giving me their support. And I'm especially proud of the Finance Committee's record for continuing their support when I do come up with these sometimes crazy ideas to finance things. But it works on behalf of the taxpayers, and I'm proud of that for the taxpayers. There's a lot of people struggling in this community. With that said, I lose sleep about a lot of things in this town. And I can't live with myself knowing that we will do nothing to the school to try to remediate the problem. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anybody on this panel knows what the answer is. I've heard several people saying, if we spend that money, are you guaranteeing the mold will go away? None of us are smart enough to be able to tell you, yes, that mold's gonna go away. I'm surely not. And I can tell you right now, even the trained people up here, I don't think would be willing to say to you or to me, 100% spend the $3.5 or $4.2 million and you will never have a mold problem again. Again, we can only do what we've been told, what the professionals have come in and explained to the school committee, the Board of Selectmen, and I haven't heavily involved in the project. I know that Mr. Hinckley has been having different engagements with the school committee members and staff on this problem with the mold problem when Serpro came in. I do have a solution. When training first came to the Board of Selectmen 6 or 9 months ago and did their presentation to the Board of Selectmen, they put up a screen on a little whiteboard and had a little gray box. I never forget the little gray box. And it was something about $70,000 in air purification, sealing up the envelope, and a few other things that equated to roughly $900 to $1 million. So having that memory, I've been thinking about this, and I do feel, and I agree with Mr. Tran when he spoke about the lack of communication. When I drive around the street signs, the flashing signs that are around town, they're just telling me that early voting is available till April 15th, and town meeting's April 22nd, but nothing about a debt exclusion, nothing about the school project. So I don't know how many people are out there in the public that are gonna come out and support or not support the project. I don't know how many people will come to town meeting and support or not support the project. What I can tell the people in this room and the people that are watching this video is I will work along with the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Hinckley, and Selectman Warner to figure out some solution, a plan B, to do something to the buildings to start to solve the problem that we have. It's not going to be $3.5 million because nobody's got that magic wand. But I can tell you this right now, in confidence, I can pull off another $1 million project and not ask any of you to spend a dime additional tax dollars.
I'd just like to make one comment on that, Mr. Gaspar. We understand the budgetary concerns, but the reality of the situation now is the professionals have looked at what is potentially going to be the most effective solution that will solve the problem. It's the comprehensive solution that has been presented. So we can take this project in stages. It may or may not solve the problem, and as I stated earlier, it may ultimately cost the town more money than what this project currently is proposed to cost us. So that is, of course, there's no guarantee that that solution works, but they're the professionals and that's their recommendation. So it is a risk to take it in stages. It's a risk from a success, will it be successful? It's a risk from a cost perspective.
There's risks on both sides of the equation, Mr. Hood, let's face it.
Mr. Gasper, if this vote were to succeed with the select board, I'm willing to use that $1 million to reduce the borrowing down to $2.5 million.
I'm sorry?
If this vote were to succeed on the ballot, would the select board be willing to use $1 million that you spoke of to reduce the debt borrowing down to $2.5 million to reduce the tax implications on the residents?
So that would be a question, I can't speak for my board, that would be a violation of the open meeting law, Mr. Hinckley and I didn't make that decision. So the reality of it is when we come out of this public hearing, I just told you that I will have a conversation with the Board of Selectmen on options, because doing nothing is not an answer or a solution, correct? So there was an option up on that board, and I understand what Mr. Hood's saying, nobody wants to lose a $500,000 grant, I get it. But something is better than nothing. A wise man once told me, 50% of something's better than 100% of nothing. Thank you.
I just want to get this straight. Tuesday, we're going to vote, correct? Does that mean it's either a done deal or not, or does it come to the town meeting to?
So a successful ballot vote still relies on annual town meeting to vote to let the select board appropriate the funds to borrow for this project, as well as authorize the select board to enter into contract with Train to begin work and completion of this project. So there will be 2 additional votes at town meeting upon a successful ballot vote on April 22nd.
Tuesday's the big vote. First one. If it fails Tuesday, you're done.
Mr. Train, it's a valid question in town meeting.
And just to clarify, if it doesn't pass the ballot, it can still pass in town meeting. There just needs to be a future vote to reauthor, to find a way to fund the project.
Mr. Howcroft just brought up a point. When we did the school additions and renovations, my recollection, it was a $28 million project. Sounds like a real bargain today. And we had a 75% reimbursement, I believe. I'm getting old, I may have the numbers off a little bit. There's no more school building assistance? Is that?
There is, and they just actually scored our roof project at AES.
Have we tested this school for mold? Are we good here?
So far, sir.
That's a yes, we're good? We're not gonna be back in 2 years to say we need 5 million, 6 million to do this one?
Again, we can't promise anything. Right now, the school was built in 1960, the school next door was built in 1970. You know, they're almost 100 years old.
I know how old they are, but the additions are only 22 years old. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Jesse Ellis, 922 Middle Road. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, because one thing that seems to have come up recurringly throughout the course of the meeting is there seems to be a perception that they're not getting to the root cause of the mold. I happen to have some expertise in this matter, and I think that one thing that's very important to remember is that the presence of mold is endemic in the environment. It's everywhere, it's on all of our clothes, everywhere we walk around we have mold spores with us. The problem is when it gets a chance to actually settle on a surface and grow. That's really a factor of temperature, relative humidity, and airflow. If there's high amounts of moisture infiltration, like through the concrete that we discussed before, through the building envelope, but there's a lot of airflow and there's a very tightly controlled indoor temperature, mold is not an issue, except when you get to extremes. Unfortunately, if we seal up the whole building, let's say we attack the envelope, we attack getting all of like an absolute minimum of airflow coming into the building from the outside environment, but we don't address the indoor air circulation, we will continue to have mold issues. And they'll probably be exacerbated because if we don't have the dehumidification, the temperature control, and airflow, it's an environment that's ripe for mold growth. So attacking, like there's no way that we can chip up the concrete and lay it back down and moisture seal underneath it while school is in session, or really at all. That's an unrealistic solution. The only solution at that point is building a new facility, which is way outside the scope of the town budget in the foreseeable future. So I think that it's not like this is some infection in the building with mold getting in and not going out. Mold is everywhere. It's a matter of what we can do to control it and remediate it. That's the only comment I have.
Thank you.
Just a couple quick questions.
Hi, Jason Alcock, Halfway Road, Acushnet. If I understand the numbers that were tossed around, they were the 3.4, 3.5, 4.2, roughly $1 million is for the sealing up of the building, if I recall that number tossed out-ish?
So school committee did a presentation before the Board of Selectmen somewhere around 6 to 9 months ago in the Board of Selectmen's meeting room, and they had a slideshow in their little gray box. Had roughly $900 and some odd $1,000, let's call it $1 million, roundabout number. That was for 78 was air purification, and then whatever the remaining, about sealing up the envelope, fixing all the leaks and all of that stuff. I don't know what else it included. Maybe Train can talk about their little square box. I just remember it vaguely, and I remember it was roughly $1 million.
And that's one thing I was looking for. Do we know roughly numbers we're talking about equipment train versus building repair in that number?
Yes, so Train has operated that little square box since they've come along with the audit and the project. The equipment to address the air quality improvement is $3.1 million. The building control upgrades is approximately $500,000, and then the envelope stock sealing, air purification, and electrical upgrade is another $500,000 in total. So that's where we get the 4.2.
I heard earlier.
And that was in January 6th, 2025, when the investment grade loan was finalized.
And I've heard during one of the earlier discussions, during the upgrades, there'll be some other repairs, add-ons, things that we're not sure of, incidentals and whatnot. Obviously, we have no idea what that could be. How detailed is that in the bid, as far as what will be covered, not covered, and what may be as, an extra, only because it tends to happen a lot with bid work.
So I'll address it and I'll share, but again, that goes back to the type of this procurement and what Trane is offering is fixed firm pricing. So at $4.2 million, we get the comprehensive project. If they run into anything on the way, the liability of cost is on Trane. It will never exceed $4.2 million. And again, that's not the amount necessarily borrowed because we've offset it with grants and other incentives, but the total project cost, when we talk actual cost of the project, it cannot exceed $4.2 million. If we move quickly enough to lock into, the current equipment prices and everything like that.
That's a great question, and thank you for asking. So we do run into these types of issues where little pieces, little components of equipment have failed over time, right? And it's very difficult to figure out where those are. Based off of our experience in other buildings and the deficiencies, we call it deficiencies, the deficiency list that we've developed while doing a construction project like this, we picked what we believe is a really confident number to carry in our estimate to cover any issues that arise, specifically primarily with the air handlers, which is the HUD units, which are primarily the heating and ventilation pieces of equipment. So we are confident that we're covered for anything we find in that area.
And just so you know, usually when a contractor does a bid, they have a contingency, what they call a contingency built into that budget, right? And it's usually somewhere around 5 to 7% of the total cost of the budget, the project.
And I know other people have said it, I just heard about this meeting like 3 days ago. I don't have social media. I just happened to drive by the town hall and saw something about, ballot something, so my wife jumped online and was looking. And that's very bothersome, because I get 3, 4, 5 notices a year telling me if I don't renew my dog tags, I'm going to get a fine. But I don't hear about this multi-million-dollar project. So can someone maybe stick another insert with the dog tag, let people know at the town, hey, you also have these very important meetings coming up, might want to look into it? So that's just my opinion.
So fortunately, the town clerk reached out to us saying that, the town was willing to help put out a mailing for this again. Otherwise, we can't really capture the full on type of moves in the school. Mr. Hinckley and I, have discussed and have been careful about campaign laws and ethic laws and what we, as a school committee and personnel, are allowed and not allowed to do. We could talk about that for a long time.
I think that's a problem. It is a problem, just for me to talk about that, because I'm number one for communication to the town. And I said, why don't we just do a one call and just let everybody know what's happening about these meetings? And it cannot be done because of these campaign laws. These flyers, I'm amazed that they were even allowed to go out. So it's unfortunate that towns have, and school districts have this, limitation about communicating to the town, but it is what it is. I haven't been able to find another way around it, and neither has this committee, so it is unfortunate. But we have tried and asked for multiple vehicles to get the communication out, and we've been shut down because of campaign laws.
So if I'm understanding this, the school committee is looking for this funding, but it's going through the town, to the taxpayers and the overrides. How come the town, how come it's going through the school committee now, like a different avenue, so we can make sure everybody knows about it? I guess I'm not understanding the whole legal aspect of it.
Mr. Chairman, just to give you some clarification, anytime there's a project that could be directly affected by a taxpayer, as elected officials, we are not allowed to share information with any bias towards any direction. So for instance, when I shared it to social media, I shared this flyer and said, this is a debt exclusion question that's going to be voted on the 22nd. All the replies underneath, unless it was factual, I couldn't actually go ahead and explain certain aspects of it. So people took it left, people took it right, upside down. I can't respond to that because technically that would show my bias towards the project. Same thing with this, to go through, we had to review these documents, which are being mailed out actually. Everybody that's a registered voter in town is going to get one of these probably within the next day. we have to make sure it's very specific on what we share. So the school committee sends out a post that says, hey, do this debt exclusion. It comes off as skewed, so it violates campaign and finance law and possible ethics laws. Could this have been advertised on town channels better? Most likely, absolutely. With that being said, I believe Patrick brought up earlier, there's toggles on our website where you can go and get notified from every single board and committee at all in this town. If it's an appointed or elected committee that holds a meeting, you can get notified on any updates they have along with any agenda that they have. And I know a lot of us take it for granted now that the internet is here. Sometimes the old school mailer has to happen because not everybody does have the internet. Not everybody has the notification set up to know exactly when the planning board, the school committee, conservation meetings happen. But I will reiterate that the Town of Acushnet website shares as much information as possible through individual board and committee notifications, which go right to your inbox and your email, and will tell you every single meeting that's happening, when it's happening, always within at least 48 hours notice of when it happens. And you can pick and choose which committees you want to look for. So I would definitely recommend that. This was kind of a hurdle just because of the actual information that we're legally allowed to share, as long as we don't share our individual biases towards it, because I can't persuade you one way or the other.
No, understood. Like I said, just stick it in with the dog license thing. Get that 4 times a year, so to make it easier. You're already paying the postage. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question of Trey real quick, just for some clarification. This is to touch back, I know Morgan, you were our point person last time. I'm going through the roof warranty. Actually, this might be more of a question for everybody. It says the roofing contractor must be Mulehide approved installer to maintain the existing warranty. Are you guys a Mulehide approved installer?
Yes,
Okay.
we would hire a contractor who is, or a contractor who is, certainly.
The other question I had in regards to Selectman Gaspard's warranty questions, you put together a list including the most common expense parts. At the bottom, it says the Train Select Mechanical Service Agreement. Is that $425,000 full select service agreement? Is that to cover all these options here? Or is that something that's included in this spec already?
It is not included in the project, that would be elective. And that is essentially the premier form of service that we offer. So we cover, if you have a select service agreement with Train, any repairs, and you need to call us, we come in and we cover it at any point in time throughout the whole year. So that's what that is. Anything, you can trim it down, you can change it, that is essentially as high as it would go for your building is what they do. And that's any of the new equipment and also the existing equipment such as boilers. The boilers due to the older are the primary point of that.
And now is that $425,000 per year?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a yearly maintenance agreement. That's why.
Just clarify.
The expectation was that you would likely not elect to do it. But it was asked. We provided.
If it was over the course of the law, it was entertaining.
Yeah.
But just thank you for the clarification.
Yes, of course. I don't think I've ever had a school district do a select service agreement. And I understand why.
Not suggesting that, they're real illustrative.
$400,000 a year to cover a warranty.
No, it's $400,000 a year so that if at any point in time throughout the whole year, anything failed or you needed service or a technician to come out on any piece of equipment, it's covered.
Right, that'd be a warranty.
It's a warranty.
That's the same, I guess, yeah, if you look at it like that, but on new equipment and existing equipment too, would be everything in the building.
The warranty's $8 million, the project is only $3.5 million after we get grants.
Can we just clarify that this isn't something we're pursuing or entertaining? There was a question asked by the select board to provide different levels of warranties and extended warranties, and this is the information that was presented. Just for people watching and listening, I don't want the misconception.
That is if you wanted Train to come and change every filter, that's you
yeah.
have maintenance personnel to do regular maintenance, right? It's not just yeah.
That's cheap money.
How can you stay in business?
All right, well, looks like there are no further questions, so I do want to thank everybody for attending and sharing your thoughts today, for your participation. This is a really important decision for our district, and we value your feedback. If there are no further comments, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn this public hearing and enter into a school committee executive session, not to return pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment, and the Business Manager. May I have a motion to close the meeting? All those in favor? Any opposed? Same time, motion passes.
Mr. Chair, motion to close the Board of Selectmen meeting.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.